Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I'm your host, Ron Dichter. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to get into a little bit of a mindset shift. And I was chatting with some entrepreneurs recently, and they are first time entrepreneurs just getting started. And one of the struggles that they were having was really a mental struggle about the concept of not working or waiting for that next paycheck. When you make that shift from employee to business owner, one of the most common things I hear, and one of the biggest challenges of people here, is that they're so used to getting paid at a certain period or interval of time. When that paycheck isn't coming, or when it's maybe coming at a less predictable clip, it can be a bit of an adjustment. And so I want to just kind of go back to the basics here for really our audience out there that are either first-time entrepreneurs or looking to become an entrepreneur and they haven't quite taken that jump yet. So when you get started, it's really important to understand that if you are on, let's just say, a twice monthly or 5th and 20th pay cycle, and you're used to getting a paycheck at these predictive intervals, like, you really start to manage your life, your budget, and everything that you do around these paydays. And one of the shifts that you have to make mentally is to realize that paydays don't exist. And sure, once your business gets established, you'll probably make yourself eventually an employee of the business and have a set and predictable pay schedule. But that could be months, years, or even longer away before that happens. And so you need to prepare yourself mentally for what that means. And by going into business, you are making the choice that you are giving up some of the stability of a job for the upside of either freedom or money or opportunity, of why you're starting this business. And so really getting comfortable doing that. And what I recommend people do when they start getting into a place where they want to start, want to begin their business, is stop thinking I need to live paycheck to paycheck. And obviously you've heard that saying about wanting to have 6 months of salary set aside. But even if you don't have that, really just getting out of the habit at some point before you take that leap is going to help you tremendously when you get to that stage where you're actually starting the business. And so what I do, or what I've done in the past when I started businesses and I didn't have resources, is I first off started to save and started to live off of a much smaller percent of my income. And so as I had that, stable job, maybe I was living off 80% of my income. I said, okay, in order for this to work, I'm going to have to live off, let's say, 40% or 50% or whatever the number is that you can still function and put food on the table and, shelter for you and or your family. But you really have to be able to ratchet down your expenses and live off of a small part of what you're earning. The second thing that I did, and again, I'm not saying this is right for everybody, is I changed the account that I had the money go into when I had a job, and I had that money go into a savings account, and a savings account that I didn't look at, obviously on a daily basis the way I would my checking account. And then what I did is, as I needed money, I would move it over from my savings account to my checking account. And what that did is it got me out of the habit of feeling like I needed the money on that predictive date, and that in turn I was spending money on those predictive dates. So that was the second thing that I did that helped me, number one, get out of the habit of living paycheck to paycheck, but also getting out of the mindset of that, like, you're spending what you take in. Because in a business, right, you don't always have that opportunity because you want to put money back in and reinvest it into the business. And then really the last thing, that you just have to do is just mentally go into this fully aware that that predictive paycheck you're getting is not going to be there. And there will be times where you're going to be living off of whatever you've saved up. And it's funny, when you have money in a savings account that you have to move over to your checking account to function and live, you think about it differently than when it just shows up in your checking account, from your work. And I'm not sure what it is. I'm not a psychologist here, but there is a shift that happens. And so by having that money put into a savings account, and by you forcing yourself to actually have to go in there, and I don't recommend setting them up on auto, I recommend actually having to go in there and move the money, from one place to the other, what you will find amazingly is that you spend less because you're more aware, you're more cognizant of what it is that you're spending money on, and you think twice about it because you know it's coming out of your savings account. So, again, really just a quick one today to talk about that shift, because if you are a first time entrepreneur, or if you're thinking about leaving your career and starting a business, getting out of that paycheck to paycheck mentality where you have that stable and predictive money coming in is a very important mental shift that you have to overcome. And again, starting to really prepare that before you get to that stage will only help you when you get to the point where you're pulling the trigger and you're ready to actually start your own business. So anyway, a little PSA for our first time entrepreneurs out there. For any of you that have already been through this, but maybe you can pass this on to somebody who's also thinking about starting a business. So I hope you found this helpful. Please remember to like and comment. Most importantly, share, getting the message out there, helping entrepreneurs to change this world and make a better place. Keep projecting your grandeur, everyone. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.